Hello everyone, welcome back to Tensorflow tutorials. In the previous two lectures, we saw what are tensors, what are they used for. We used Google Colab to create some tensors, get some hands-on. Today, what we are going to do is, in the next step, we are going to create uh, neural networks, or rather, what you call as dense layers. We're going to create today dense layers using TensorFlow. But before we create dense layers, there are two concepts uh, which I wanted to clarify. First one, what are dense layers? Dense layers are layers where every new uh, this tensor or a perceptron or a neuron, there are multiple names for the same thing, is connected to every other neuron in the previous layer. So this one is connected to all the layers in the previous one. This one is connected to all the previous. This one is connected to all the previous. This one is connected to all the previous layers. That way, this is called as the um, dense layer. Okay, so what we are going to do is we will create a dense layer uh, using TensorFlow API, keras API. We will be using sequential model for the demo. Now, what is a sequential model? A sequential model is a model where you have multiple hidden layers or multiple these layers of these dense layers, but you add them to the model one at a time in sequence, okay, until you have the final output. So it's nothing fancy. You will have multiple dense layers, and in sequential model, you add one dense layer at a time. Okay, so it's a very simple demo which will teach you the keras sequential API. You would also use the dense API to create the dense neural network. Okay, so dense means it's also the fully connected layers. Okay, all right. So it connects every neuron in one layer to every neuron in the next layer. Okay, so the mathematical operation performed is matrix multiplication. Now, what matrix multiplication? You pass the weights and the input, right? And the bias. These are the two things. And the activation function. What should be the activation function? So input multiplied by its weights. Okay, input multiplied by its weight plus the bias. Okay, so that is how it's passed. That's this what do you call standard formula or whatever it is um, for artificial intelligence or the neural networks. Okay, so let's do this in actual practical implementation. We will use Google Colab, which is very much similar to Jupyter Notebooks. So let's go ahead and get started. So go back, and here it is, TensorFlow. So again, you're importing from the keras, TensorFlow keras, you're importing sequential, which is the model. And from the layer, we are importing dense layer. So that's all we have to do. Everything else under the hood is done by the APIs. So we define number of output nodes as 3. Now what are the output nodes? Like every layer, how many neurons it will contain. So in our case, the slide that we saw, it had 4 neurons. In this, we are building a network with 3 neurons at every layer. So we define the sequential model, groups a linear stack of layers. Okay, so first we add the first layer, dense layer. So output nodes, which is 3. The first layer contains 3. Input is 2. Input shape is 2. So 2 input nodes goes. The activation function is sigmoid. The second dense layer, again, second dense layer also has 3 nodes. Activation function is sigmoid. And then you add that dense layer. So there are two ways, right? It's just showing, so it has 2 dense layers. One is here, you create an instance of the dense class, or you can define a variable and then add it to the model. But see, the bottom line is what you're doing is You are adding layer by layer to the model. Model.add, model.add. Now you can go on adding as many models or as many layers as you want. Each layer is nothing but a collection of neurons or perceptrons which are connected. Because it's dense, it is connected to every other layer in its previous layer and its next layer. This you're just testing the input. You're passing two inputs, 1 comma 2, input shape is 1 comma 2, and we just run. Okay, very simple. So let's run it. So there you go. You created the model, test it, and there you have it. Okay, so this is what it is. It's very simple. Okay, we are learning step by step, one step, baby step at a time, TensorFlow to create um, or to how to use TensorFlows. Okay, baby steps in using TensorFlows in creating more complex AI models. So two things we learned today. One is what is a sequential model and what is a dense layer. How do we create a model, sequential model with dense layers? So that's all it is for today. All right. Thank you for your time. See you all again in the next class with some new set of concepts regarding TensorFlow. Bye.